All right, so we still have people joining us. Let me just sort of tell you what our outline is for today. Mostly all of you will be directing it, which is part of what makes it so much fun. We have a mix of people on today. We have some people who have taken some FMA classes, which is Functional Medicine Academy, and they have some questions. We have some IFM students, Institute of Functional Medicine, some of my practitioner coaching clients from around the world. So basically this is 2 hours I've set aside. You can stay for the whole thing or come and go. And it's just a freebie for you all. So in any way that I can help. I know there's a few questions that people do want answered that were already sent to me. So I'll make sure those get answered. Otherwise, you get to ask whatever you want. So as far as topics, I often get questions as far as like setting up a virtual practice. Sometimes they're clinical questions, sometimes marketing. If I can't answer something, I'll tell you, but otherwise, whatever's on your mind sounds good. Okay, as I'm still admitting people, let me just give you a very, very brief intro if I'm new to you. So my name's Dr. Zachary, and I'm with Body Love Cafe. That's my clinic in California. My business background, for those who don't know, I'm actually a 5th generation female entrepreneur, and I've had a variety of businesses, and I've actually coached over 20,000 business owners over the years. That used to be my full-time job. I wrote the first visual personality profiling system that was published by McGraw-Hill out of New York. And I coached all sorts of entrepreneurs that had to get their own clients and build a business. The vast majority of them were in healthcare, but we had attorneys and real estate agents and, just everyone who had to hustle and get out there and run a business. I do almost exclusively functional medicine now. So many people who are in functional medicine know that you don't get to just be the practitioner, you're also running a business also. Sometimes that's a surprise at how much work that can be and what it takes to get going. Anyway, I love to teach, so it's always fun to do these things. As far as practice, I didn't think I'd get back into healthcare. I'm a DC from going 20 years back. But I got terribly sick myself and was declared permanently disabled. Every 3 weeks I was getting IVIG in the hospital, was told I'd never be in healthcare again around kids. It's a pretty miserable existence. And that's how I found functional medicine. And so when people saw me get better, they started showing up at my house. So I thought, well, maybe I'll get an office. That was about almost 5 years ago. And that's when I opened Body Love Cafe. And it just grew very, very quickly, which was great, from like 100 square feet, then to 1,400 square feet and multiple practitioners. And then this last year was a challenge, which I'm sure it was for some of you too. And I took my practice virtual. So I've had many different types of practice setups and coached many people through different practice setups. I'm a big fan of creating a practice that works for you, because we're all caregivers in some realm, and it's so easy to burn out and get exhausted. Just that part of the job of giving, giving, giving. So yeah, anything's possible, and it's fun to create. I currently coach physicians on 5 continents right now. So, and I try to see less and less patients, but I still see a fair amount of patients, trying to replace myself. We'll see what happens. Okay, I think I have just about everyone in. And keeping yourself muted is fine, but I want you to be able to unmute yourself and interrupt and ask questions. I'm going to start with a couple of here's more. I'm going to start with a couple of the questions that I was emailed, and then whatever you need, just jump in. So the first ones was from an FMA attendee. This is Functional Medicine Academy. Those of you that are on that have gone through IFM with me, Institute of Functional Medicine, it's really the gold standard for functional medicine certification. Awesome program. Some describe it as like drinking from the fire hose. I loved it. I have to say, I thought it was easier doing it since I had already been in practice for years. I think it probably would have been more challenging if like that had been the first exposure. But anyway, I was already coaching people privately and teaching smaller groups and classes. I started Functional Medicine Academy because I had many friends and colleagues that did not know how to either start a business or how to take all this amazing IFM knowledge and put it into clinical practice. You know, what'd you do on Monday type thing. And I had a couple friends, specifically some MDs and DOs, where I always said, you have all the keys to the castle. Like, we should have amazing success here. And they were closing their private practices, which I just thought was nuts. And they were certainly talented practitioners. So I started Functional Medicine Academy as a way to sort of teach some nuts and bolts in a really easy to understand way that you could put into action immediately. So it certainly does not replace IFM, nor is it designed to, but that's what that is about. Now, last year I taught it exclusively through a local training company, and that training company did not survive COVID because they only did in-person classes. So I'm teaching it virtually now. So for everyone who had it before, you know, that was through another company. You paid them, but I feel bad that they went out of business, even though I had nothing to do with it. So everyone who already had FMA, you can get all the new versions, no charge. So I just want you to know that. So that way you can finish your certification. So hopefully that will help answer that. And then to finish the certification, if you want to see it, I'll just share my screen real quick. And if I'm going through it too fast, just because I want to get on to some of the other questions, let me know. I'll tell you how to email me. Let me share this screen with you real quick. So hopefully you can see that, and then I'll just take it off. You can email at info@thefmaacademy.com. You can also reach me at Dr. Zachary at bodylovecafe.com. Either one's fine. So some people take just the classes that interest them. Others do the whole certification. If you do the whole certification, you do need to do a case review and a test at the end. There's a prepaid discount and there's some private coaching options. But the first class is all about like setting up the practice and doing the exam and the report of findings. The other, let me admit these people. The other classes are mostly clinical, gut health, hormones, cardiac. Class number 6 is all about marketing. I love that class because a lot of people don't teach that. So that's a very dense class. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing that. Hopefully that was enough. That you get a little snapshot there. And if there's any other FMA questions that come up, just raise your hand and we'll get to them. Otherwise, a few other questions I got. One was from someone also in California asking, she's an RN, no, she's a nurse practitioner, and she's asking how to set up practice in California with the physician supervision. So every license is different. So for those of you that are new, I know some of you are not new and you have, you know, big established practices, but we have a range of people practicing functional medicine. Functional medicine really describes a philosophy and a way to view healthcare, and everyone practices up to the scope of their license. So if you're an MD or a DO, you might be working in a hospital, you might be a surgeon, you might be prescribing. Most that are doing functional medicine often go into private practice. It can be hard to do functional medicine in a hospital setting. And then we have DCs and NDs and RNs. We have nutrition consultants and acupuncturists and coaches. And And then sometimes you have a clinic like what I have, where we have many different licenses working together, and we can sort of talk about the advantage. So there's certainly room for everyone. And some people may be more limited. If they don't have a medical license, they may not be able to order some of the great tests we have access to in functional medicine. But that doesn't mean they can't do wonderful things for people. There's a lot that can be accomplished with coaching. But you can also partner with someone else and possibly order under their license, or collaborate, or be part of their team, or come up, or if you're separate, come up with some type of deal where you work together. So there's a lot of flexibility there. So for nurse practitioners, of course, every state has a different license and different regulations. In California, you do need medical supervision. Most of the nurse practitioners I know, that does not mean in the office, but they often meet maybe once or twice a month to review cases. And as long as you check with your malpractice insurance, cover yourself legally. If you're meeting your obligation there, then great. I know many nurse practitioners who are completely running a clinic in California, and they just have that oversight, that medical oversight. Otherwise, they have lots of flexibility. And as a nurse practitioner in California, I don't know about every other state, but in California, you're also have prescription rights also. So you have a big flexibility there for practice. As far as actually setting it up, I had another nurse ask, and a nutrition consultant asked, and a PhD asked. So several people asked the same question. The PhD was a psychotherapist. We're asking about ordering lab work. So I love labs. I love teaching labs. In fact, if anyone has a question about a certain lab, I'm happy to go through it. I could even pull some up and walk you through pieces of it. But some of the advanced functional medicine labs we have are fabulous. I can tell you my personal favorites. I love the GI map stool test. I've used them all. I like that one the best because I think it has the best value for the patient as far as cost. I run a cash practice. We'll give super bills, but I don't bill insurance. I had a practice long ago where I did, and it was just a headache, so I just don't want to. So we try to keep the rates as reasonable as possible because patients are paying cash. So GI map is a more affordable test than some of the other stool tests, particularly for all of the markers you're getting. So there's more I could say about why, but I'm a big fan of that test. I like the Dutch test the best for the hormone tests. I've used many of the other ones. Also, I like Dutch Complete the best. So that's the one I order most often. Now, some of these tests, you do need a medical license to order it. I'll tell you another little trick that I love. For those of you who don't know about Rupa Health, have you guys heard about Rupa Health? I know a lot of you have your camera off, so I can't see you, but those of you who have it on, or you can, I'll open up the chat. You can just say something in the chat. And let me put what the link is for it, rupahealth.com. I love them because when I went virtual, before that, my staff, we would order so many different tests. Everything's custom in our office, which there's advantages to that and disadvantages. For those who do sort of cookie cutter care, I understand why, because it can be draining to customize everything. But as someone who was sick before and had like 8 specialists in their life, and I had to figure it out myself, they couldn't. We just do custom care. So we would order a variety of different tests. That meant communicating with, maybe 10 different lab companies and, getting those kits to patients and then looking in all these different portals. So I had a staff member that was essentially their full-time job. So when we went virtual, I said, forget it, because I felt like a UPS shipping center and I didn't want to do that. So that's where Rupa Health stepped in. And so they're a bit like a clearinghouse. And I always know something's good when my staff says, we love them, you're not allowed to cancel them. So I said, okay, we'll keep them. And I've since then met the owners. They're lovely, great female-run company, but they're out of San Francisco. I know they serve the whole U.S. I'm not sure if they serve Canada yet or not. If not, I think it's coming, but definitely throughout the U.S. And it's free to open an account, and they carry just about every lab you could want. Certainly all the ones I use, they carry, and we order through there. And they charge a 7% service fee, which is inexpensive, right? If it's a $300 test, we're talking about $20. And they will drop ship directly to the patient. They will handle a lot of customer service and communicate instructions. And then you get all the results in one portal. So even if you had one patient who had 5 different, lab results, then you can see it all at one place. They send you an email when the labs are complete. So it's just nice. You also have the option with Rupa Health that you could have the patient pay them directly. So if you did not want to handle that and take those fees in through your clinic, that's an advantage. If, however, you want to be able to, line item out a service fee for staff time handling labs, because, there's still patient communication, and then, uploading to your portal, marking it up, things like that. Or there's a credit card fee, then you can also have your patients pay through your office, and then Rupa just charges your credit card on file. So we've done both, actually. We did it where they just paid directly, and we just now do it through our office. We find it easier to track, but we still use Rupa Health. It feels like having sort of a free staff member. So that's nice. Okay, so back to who can use the tests. Some of these, like I said, you have to have a medical license. So if that's not you, we can talk about options to collaborate with someone. Otherwise, there are more and more tests becoming available now where the patient can get them directly. Dutch, for example, is one of them. So they have, I think it's an ND on staff, and just the public can call and order a Dutch test that way, and then send it to your office. So if you wanted that, that would be one option. Some of the tests available to the public aren't as good as the ones that we get as practitioners, but we're going to start seeing that more and more. They also usually get cheaper prices through you. And if you do insurance and you can get insurance to cover it, then great, even better. Okay. I have a couple more questions, but does anyone else have some questions that they want to kick off? Because while you're here and you're live, I want to make sure that that's happening.
Hi, Dr. Zachary.
Hi.
Sorry. Sorry, Stacy. I came in just now, so I came in a little bit late. I wonder if you have, or if you're going to cover the future of FMA with you, or with Aduco. So where, what we're doing with that.
Yes, I mentioned it already, but let me go through it again.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. So Aduco, basically, they're not doing it anymore. They relied on live classes, and like many companies with COVID, no one's holding live classes. So for everyone who had signed up through them, you can finish FMA and take it through us, no charge. So you can take the classes and finish getting certified. And I showed a handout earlier. If you can email me, I'll send you that handout directly. And that way you have everything. And our classes are going to be virtual, so you can take it live or you can watch the recording. They'll be a little bit shorter too. When you teach for another company, they want to sell supplements and things like that. We have nothing to sell. We're just teaching the content. So most of the classes are on a Saturday, and they're usually 4 to 6 hours. And the last 2 hours are saved for like extra content, questions, workshopping. My goal is always that people can put this into action right away. Let's see, I got a question here. Any advice about setting up your own website efficiently and cost effective for those with no website yet? Great question, love it. Yes, so probably the easiest to start with would be like Wix.com, Wix.com. I'll just list it here. And some people like Squarespace. So I've had more complex websites. Like when I was doing a lot of coaching, I had a big membership site. And the thing that was a bit of a disadvantage was whenever I wanted to make a website change, I had to go, you know, talk to RVAs and get someone else to make it. So when I started the website for Body Love Cafe, I had been so sick, I was having to reinvent in life. So I was really starting from nothing. And I did Wix because I wanted something that was easy, where you didn't need to know code. And if I wanted to go change something, if prices changed, if I wanted to put a blog out there, if I wanted to talk about, you know, a class we were teaching or list some information about labs, I wanted to be able to get in quickly and make a change. So that's why I did Wix. And there's always like, you know, pros and cons to it. Squarespace, I would say, I can't remember the exact term, but when you create a website, you create it on a desktop and then you want it optimized for a phone, because about 2/3 of all your patients are going to be looking at your website on their phone. And so Squarespace sort of perfectly optimizes for the phone. Wix does sort of a half job. It doesn't do it perfectly. So when you make an edit, you always have to then look at it on the mobile and sometimes tweak things. I hate having to do that. So that's, I would say, is the only downside about Wix. So if I had to do it again, maybe I would go with Squarespace. But once I had done it with Wix, I wasn't going to change it. And if you look at the Body Love Cafe website, I'll just put it here so you can see it. I designed that myself with Wix. Now I look at it and I see everything wrong with it, but whatever, it works. And we get tons of new patients. It does what we need and we can make the changes. So I highly recommend that. And I'll just say a couple things that I think are important for having a website that works. One is I'm a fan of putting prices up. And a lot of people will teach you not to include prices. Now I do the exact opposite, and here's why. If you don't include prices, you're going to have to do a lot of sales calls, and you're going to be fielding a lot of people that might not even be good candidates for your practice. So I want to put as much information out there to begin with, so the people who are coming, that it's full disclosure, completely transparent, nothing to hide. So all of our services and all of our prices are listed right on the website. And you can see that under the services tab. I also think that one page that's really helpful, we have a tab called functional medicine. And the first part just sort of talks a little bit about functional medicine and what is it. And then right below it is a section called what to expect as a new patient. And when I finally sat down and took the time to get that up, it made a huge difference, because before, you know, there's always so much patient education, right? I mean, it just never ends. There's just a lot to teach them. But before, it just took up too much time of that like initial exam to even do this education. Like, how do we work and what are the steps? Now it was great. Once I put that up, then a lot of patients came in and they were driving the conversation. Like, oh, I know what to expect at this exam. And I know there's going to be a report of findings next. So whatever your format is, I certainly have a format that I think works well, and I can share that with you. But whatever your format is, I suggest spelling it out in that way. because managing expectations is a huge part of patient and client satisfaction, and it makes your life much easier. So I think that's very, very helpful. Let me just say, first of all, interrupt with another question, please. Don't like even worry about waiting for a pause. But I'll say something about what I think is a good format, and anything can work. You can do group stuff, you can do individual, you can do in a clinic, you can do online. It's all good. But a format that I like, and I find, you know, my coaching clients, they're often all at different places in their practice, but I certainly get a high percentage that they've been working in their field of medicine or nutrition, and now they're like launching their functional medicine practice, and they're always wondering, like, how do I do it? They're having a hard time because they're thinking, well, I was an acupuncturist, or I was a psychotherapist, or I was a surgeon, or I was a radiologist. Like, they just have this idea of who they are and what they do, and then how do they do this new thing? And one of the things I'm always trying to say to them is, you know, people are coming to you. You're going to be that pivot point for them. One of your main jobs is to translate for them. And even like, I don't prescribe, that's not my license. Yet I have tons of MDs, even as patients, and I'll tease them like, this is your realm. And yet they're asking me how to walk through antibiotics for SIBO, because that's one of the things our office is experts in is SIBO, right? So, so I'll joke with them about that. But, you know, the point is people need help and they need answers. So even if it's like, you need to refer to someone, maybe you need to refer them back to their primary care physician, you might need to be saying to that patient, go back to your primary, ask them about this, you know, see if they'll run this test for you. Or the point is, you're that center, right? And when you can translate and communicate and guide for that patient, they're going to keep coming back to you. And even if they have other specialists, you're going to be that pivot point. So just like that, whatever your techniques are, those are just your tools. So if you do body work, or you do acupuncture, or you do hypnotherapy, or you do supplements, or you do elimination diets, or you do, you know, bioidentical hormones, whatever you do, those are just your tools. So instead of separating all of that out, I highly recommend, like the format we do, and you can just see it on our website, I highly recommend, you know, having a no charge consult. I don't even do them, by the way. Health coaches in our office do them. I can tell you more about that if anyone's interested. And then an intake, again, I don't do them either. Health coaches do it, which is great. And I like an intake that if you're the physician doing it, it's going to have to cost more because that's your time. But I like the intake to be as affordable as possible, so there's no barrier to beginning care. And then the report of findings. So sort of the purpose of it. The purpose of a no charge consult, very short and sweet. It's, who are you? Can you help me? Do I trust you? What do you have to offer? I have this boo-boo. Do you have a test that might work for it? Do I even like the sound of your voice? Did I read your website right? Right? Short and sweet. And then the intake is, we have a 15-page intake, which I give to everyone in Functional Medicine Academy. We used to use a paper version. Now we do it all electronic. Love that. And it's very detailed. And then, so part of the intake and how we train our health coaches is organizing that information into a timeline for me. For those of you who've done IFM, that sounds familiar. But also there may be some basic supplements to start the patient on, because people want to start with something, and even though you may be having to figure out more complex issues, they may come with a tummy ache, or they're having a hard time sleeping, or they have a little bit of pain. There's usually something that can be addressed from the beginning, and that allows the time between that intake and the report of findings. The patient's going to have homework. We're going to give them a starter meal plan. We're going to figure out what tests they need, and they're going to get those tests done. And then the other purpose of the intake is to make sure that that patient is a good candidate for you, right? They need to understand that functional medicine is a partnership. It's different. It's not a pill for every ill. It's not like setting a bone, you know, we have a cast for 6 weeks and we're done. So a lot gets accomplished during that intake, making sure they're a good fit and setting up for that partnership. And then the functional, the report of findings, that's the first time they encounter me or they encounter one of our other practitioners. And that's where we have all their testing. We've analyzed everything. We're seeing how they did over the last few weeks with the first few changes we initiated. Sometimes they're already half better. And then we're creating a full plan for them. And this is where, you know, your plan might be, let's say you're doing straight functional medicine and you're consulting. Maybe it's virtual, maybe it's not. Maybe the plan is, you know, do A, B, and C, and the next visit is with me. If you have other techniques or you have other practitioners, maybe part of your plan is, I want you to do 3 acupuncture sessions, or I'm going to recommend this other technique. So that's where you just bring in all your skills, but you don't have to create a complex menu of services, and you don't have to be a different person, you know, each time. You're just giving that patient in front of you whatever they need. So that's sort of a short and sweet version. Okay, let me see. Yes, it's being recorded, I hope. Yes, it is being recorded. I see a marketing question. I'm going to come back to that. Let's get into marketing for sure, because a lot of people have wonderful talent, but they need to bring the people in, right?
Dr. Zachary,
Yes, go ahead.
I'm Stacy. Hi, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Is it an okay time to interrupt?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, great. So I've been practicing for a couple of years. I went through the Functional Medicine Coaching Academy, graduated a few years ago, and now I'm in the AFM CP program at IFM. So it's really great and been super enlightening. And I'm really excited to speak the same language of functional medicine certified practitioners and be able to market myself in a different way than I had been in the past. My question to you is, the past couple of years with my own personal practice, I've been using healthy.com as a way to communicate with my clients, it's, you know, a wellness platform basically developed for health coaches. Do you have an opinion about any other platforms that are out there that are better, or any that you've used, or you have coaches that use that interface with what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. I love it. So let me just say that when I was practicing before, I was very old school, and because I'm actually quite old. So I was using paper, and I loved it. It was just easy peasy, or so I thought. But then when I went virtual, I knew this is such a pain to convert. You know, I had to move like 1,500 patient files and stuff. It's just a pain to do all that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to pick one I was going to stick with. So I did a lot of research, and I looked at all the ones IFM recommends, Living Matrix, all these things. What I landed on, and none of them do everything, right? But the one I landed on was Jane. And I really do love that one. I highly recommend it. I think it's incredibly affordable. For those who do insurance, you can bill your insurance there. For newsletters, it combines with Mailchimp. Mailchimp is not my favorite marketing tool, but I use it because it will combine with Wix and with Jane, and we want to get rid of as many steps as we can in the process. But Jane has HIPAA compliant video, so my patients love that. It was a process. Like, they're out of Canada. They said no one had set up a practice the way we had. So we know it inside and out. My staff's on a first name basis with them. And I have a lot of coaching clients where I help them set it up. But I think it works wonderfully. I did take IFM's timeline concept and matrix concept, and completely changed it because I didn't think it was simple enough. You know, who wants to talk about antecedents, you know, when you're like in the flow and you're talking to patients, whatever. So I made it simpler and easier. I did a paper version and I give that to FMA people. But then in Jane, I had the challenge of, well, now how am I going to do this electronically? And so we figured it out, and it works quite well. And we use, I call it the CSQ, Current Symptom Questionnaire, but it's modified after the MSQ with a few changes and some additions. And that gets sent out before each visit. So, you know, everything's electronic now, all the release forms, it's just so smooth and so wonderful. So if I was going to start new again, I would do it that way. Even with an in-person practice, I would do Jane, and I would, you know, use that database. And if you're in person, you know, you can hand someone an iPad or whatever, but otherwise most patients do things from home. And we just have a lovely system now where we can have our visit. We have all these templates made. A lot of my coaching clients, they just steal my templates because it's just easier instead of reinventing the wheel. But you've got a charting template. I'm a big fan of when you're done with the visit, you're done. Because so many people are spending hours having to chart. And I think we work hard enough. So I'm done with the patient 1 minute after that visit. I literally am charting in this template while we have the visit. I'm dialoguing with them. Everything's in there. And right afterwards, I make it visible to them and they get their after visit summary just like that. So it's just a beautiful system. And then my staff can get in there, and if there's instructions on ordering a lab, they can do that. It says when they need to have a next visit. They can send the patient a visit reminder with the exact type of visit they need and which practitioner, because we have several practitioners. So they pay through there. I mean, it's just, and then Jane, you can track it easily through QuickBooks. So when there's just all these systems you have to use and you want to simplify it, I highly recommend it. So yeah, we use QuickBooks Online for bookkeeping, profit and loss, etc. Jane payments, the credit card will automatically show up there. We use Jane for the software for the EMR. We use Rupa Health for the labs. Again, you don't have to use it, but it saves time. It's worth it to us. It's nice. We do so many labs. It's nice to be able to see it in one portal. And then Mailchimp we use for marketing. Again, Mailchimp, not my favorite, but we want as little extra work as possible. Wix is our website. And so if someone opts in on our website or asks a question or signs up for an educational class, they automatically get added to Mailchimp. New patients through Jane automatically get added to Mailchimp. So it's just, you know, how much easier can you make those things?
Okay, thank you very much.
No problem. Okay, let's see. I got a question here. For a newly graduated ND, congratulations. Wonderful. Great license. Is it worth it to go through the IFM coaching program or any other coaching program? You know, if you're an ND, I don't think you need to go through the coaching program. I think the coaching program, it's not a true IFM coaching program, right? It's another company, but they have a relationship. And I think that coaching program is excellent for someone who doesn't have a medical license. And I haven't gone through it personally, but I have clients who have, so I'm speaking from not having actually gone through it. But from what I understand, they do a great job as far as, you know, sort of general education, but also teaching a lot about being the coach, right? And how do you get people to make changes and the benefit of coaching, which I'm a huge fan of coaching. Like coaches play a big role in our office. So I would consider sending my coaches through that program. Now, what because I have FMA, I just send them through my FMA program because it's right there, and we train them in-house. But if we didn't have something like that, then I might send them through IFM's coaching program. Otherwise, as an ND, you already have extensive training. If you're taking IFM classes, you have a ton of information there. I would see, where are your gaps and what draws you to that? Do you feel like you want it because you feel like you're having a hard time communicating with people, or maybe you're telling them to do something and they're not listening, or, like, what is it that's missing? And then could we just solve the answer to what's missing instead of having to do, a whole nother program? It's not a cheap program either. Okay, if I didn't answer that completely, please interrupt me and we'll get into more detail. All right, is the FMA info you shared available for us to see on the website? You can actually see it in more than one place. Probably the easiest would be to go to doczachary.com. I'll just put that in so you can see it. I can also email you the handout if you want, and more information. As far as my certification, the one involved by IFM, quite frankly, mine's easier to get through. IFM is very comprehensive. I've done it. It's a wonderful program. I probably wouldn't have even offered mine and just told everyone to go to IFM. The reason I offered mine is the cost is dramatically different and the focus is different. IFM is trying to give you a very broad, in-depth, dense education, which is wonderful. Mine is trying to teach you what to do in practice and how to get people. So setting up the practice, marketing, and making those clinical decisions. So IFM might teach like just this huge bucket of information. I have 2 classes on gut health because there's so much to it, but it's very synthesized. Instead of teaching you everything you could ever know about gut health, it's what you need to know for the patients who are in front of you. Those with gallbladder issues, those with digestive issues, SIBO, Candida, ulcerative colitis, those types of things. So what lab do you need to order? How do you read that lab? What meal plan do you need to give them? What supplements do you want to give them? That's the focus with it. So it's a shorter, smaller, practical education. That's really the purpose. If you don't prescribe, how do patients get good quality supplements? So it depends on what, you didn't say what your license is, so I'm not sure. So if you can get supplements that are available to practitioners, in fact, I'll tell you my bias.
I'm an NP. I'm an NP.
Nurse practitioner? Okay.
Yes.
So you should be able to get practitioner quality supplements. And NP is a great license, by the way. You can do just about everything. So really, really wonderful license. Your challenge is going to be, how much do I want to do? So it's a fun problem to have, actually. You're going to get to structure your clinic and decide what you want to offer. So I love working with NPs, actually. That's exciting. So let me, I highly recommend practitioner supplements because the quality is so much better. And quite frankly, you put a ton of work into knowing what supplements to recommend. If it was just easy and people could, listen to their mom, like I was thinking of my mom telling my sister to take a daily aspirin. It's like, what? No, this does not apply across the board. You're taking a daily aspirin, so you tell everyone else. No, it doesn't work like that. But that's how most people do supplements, right? The public, they go buy it at maybe Whole Foods if they think they're getting good quality. I actually don't like most of Whole Foods supplements. Or they're doing Amazon, or they're doing Costco, or they're doing CVS. Most of it's complete junk, doesn't do anything. And they're just randomly buying things that their neighbors said worked for them, forgetting that they are a completely different person. And, you know, it's really very hit or miss. So part of your education is knowing what to recommend when, and you should be compensated for that. And if you can make a commission from a supplement company for that, then you don't have to charge the patient as much, right? I mean, I'll have some patients, they don't buy any supplements, but then I'll have some who will need a lot. So I don't pay attention to it from patient to patient. I don't care. If they don't buy any supplements, I don't give a hoot. But overall, I know there's a certain amount that will happen across the board, right? Now, I've used probably 30 different supplement companies. I'm not a fan of carrying inventory, especially when I was first starting in practice. You don't need to. Why spend that extra money? As someone who's helped tons of people in business, I like you to be profitable from day one. I like you to not have to carry debt. And so these are just really important things to set up success and have a good, you know, a good quality life. So feeling like you need to buy some big, you know, natural pharmacy in your office is not at all necessary. You can drop ship, or you can have e-stores and set it up so the patients pay themselves. Now, I'm not a fan of Welluvate or Full Script because they pay the practitioner 35%, and I don't like that. I'm a big fan of Designs for Health. I've used them for years. They have great quality. They have good customer service. I like their sourcing. They use methylated B vitamins. I like their omegas. I need supplements I can count on for results. They have almost everything I need, not everything. There's always other things I have to order also, but you know, probably 80 to 95%, I would say I can get through Designs for Health. Good customer service, good shipping. These are the things I look for, right? So I'll just say it in order. Number one, I look for good quality above all. Things have to work. Then number two, I look for good customer service, shipping, because I don't want headaches. I don't want unhappy patients. And then number three, I'm looking for how do they pay? And with Designs for Health, you can earn up to 65%. They're the only ones who pay that. So also, if you do Designs for Health, you can get Well World, which is their health coaching app. So I could tell, and I don't work for Designs for Health, by the way. I have zero affiliation with them. I'm just telling you my personal bias based on experience. But I can tell you about the Well World app. So that can be a wonderful health coaching tool that you can make available free to your patients and clients. You can have an e-store. You can order for people. We have Designs for Health because we have patients on other continents too. So we have Designs for Health in Canada and UK and Australia. Most of what we use is in America. So anyway, very, very happy with how they work. And I do recommend not making it too complicated. They use, I like Quicksilver too, and they use Quicksilver for their liposomals. So great, I'm just gonna get it through Designs for Health. It's a better deal anyway, but Quicksilver is the one who actually makes their liposomals. I don't think you need to white label anything. I'm not a fan of that. Some practitioners want to white label. As soon as you white label, you're a salesperson, right? Then you have to sell a supplement for your clinic. My office is very non-salesy. We just give the information. It's always in the patient's hands. They can do it or not do it. We provide the information, but they're in control. All right, let's see. Oh, let me just answer other supplements. So when Designs for Health doesn't do it, we need something different. We usually order through Emerson. So I like Emerson because you can get many other supplement companies, and they're the ones that run Welluvate, right? Welluvate is their online version of Full Script, but both only pay 35%. So if we go through Emerson, my office can place an order and you get the typical percentage rate. Now, part of why I also like a higher percentage as a practitioner is I give patients discounts. So I just think it's nice to have a savings, and I would much rather have them get the supplements they need than not be able to afford them. I think it also helps to build loyalty. So I like a company that will give us higher percentage to the office, because then I can give it back to the patients too. So not everyone needs to do that. You certainly don't need to discount them, but that's something that we do, and it's worked fine. I don't mind, you know, not making the maximum amount of money, whatever. We're doing fine. It's plenty. And then as far as what other supplements do I use, lots of other different companies. So if you have clinical questions, ask me and I'll tell you some of those. All right, here's a question that says, I want to know how psychotherapists incorporate functional medicine. I've had psychotherapists as coaching clients, and just like anyone else who had like a certain technique and now they're stepping into functional medicine, you have to start seeing yourself in a different way. That's the most important thing. And quite frankly, I don't care what your license is. I think you can practice up to your ability to think clearly. So whatever your license is, if you're going to do the work to learn something, your biggest job is to educate the patient. So, you know, you might not be a surgeon, but you might have a patient who's about to go through surgery and they're talking about, you know, supplements and diets and exercise to use before and after surgery. So you may be in a situation where you're providing advice and education, and, you know, to ask your surgeon this and collaborate in that way. So I don't think you necessarily have to have a specific license to provide information. It's just how much do you want to learn? And when a patient comes to you or a client comes to you with something you don't know, are you willing to go look it up and do the work for them? Because with, you know, your education and your training and your brain and your ability, can you synthesize the information? And if you can't, just tell them you can't. You know, if you don't know something, you don't know. But if you're willing to look it up and share an opinion, that's, you know, having an educated opinion is of great value. So a psychotherapist, it depends on where you're located, but you may be able to have access to practitioner supplements, practitioner grade supplements, and advanced functional testing, which means there's a lot you can do. If you don't have access to some of those things, then you could choose to do psychotherapy and coaching and meal plans and elimination diets. You can still recommend and educate about which supplements and just tell them to, you know, buy it at other places. But if your state or your country really had your hands sort of tied and didn't give you some of that flexibility, I would say to partner with someone. And you may either want to have a business together and have a clinic together, or some of the ways you can do this, I've done this for people before. Like you can't do, or most states, most places, you can't do like kickbacks or things like that. So you have to figure out how you can legally make it work. But what I would do for people who didn't have that license is, if they had a patient or a client, they had their fees with them and whatever, but they wanted me to order a test, give them the result, make recommendations, then basically they would hire me to deliver that service. They'd give me a 1099 at the end of the year, right? And I would just invoice them each time I did it. So the person would come, I would provide the service that they'd want, and I did the invoice. So it's very clean that way to do that. As far as what they charge their client and all that, I have no idea, and I don't care. That's their business. But I would have a set of fees. If I'm going to order and analyze a Dutch test for you, here's what it is, you know, that type of thing. I hear a voice. Can you make yourself a little bit louder? Sorry, I just want to make sure I hear you well.
Can you hear me okay? Is this better?
A little bit. Let me try to see if I can turn it up. Try again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So my question, I asked the question, I'm a psychotherapist. So I'm just wondering, I'm in Illinois. How do you find out whether or not you have that as an option to, 'cause I know you have to work within your scope.
Right.
So I was wondering what that looks like or how do I find that information of what you can order in terms of tests or things like that.
There's a couple ways to do it. So one is you can go to your state board and you can ask them, but sometimes they're only as good as who you get on the phone. So it can be better to actually look at your license, like look at what's included. Is nutritional advice included as something that you can provide? And then another source that's very helpful is going to the lab companies and to the supplement companies, because they're usually pretty well versed on who they are allowed to have accounts for. And then everyone at some point or another is going to have to consult with an attorney. Like you can look at our website at the very bottom has like our service policies. Whenever you have a website, you have to have what's it called? Terms of service, privacy policy, etc. We have that. You can always, so everyone has to have that, and we all copy each other's and then change the details because it's a lot of really legalese and verbiage. And then the other thing we have below it are like Body Love Cafe service policies and our HIPAA privacy policy. And what else is there? There's something else I'm not thinking of. I can't remember it off the top of my head. But anyway, that link is there so you can see. So having an attorney to review that, and they shouldn't charge a ton, can be helpful just to make sure that your forms are good. So hopefully that will help. All right, let me see. What is it called? Yeah, this one, let me just send this so everyone can see it. I don't know why it's called Jane Software App, but it is. Jane Software App is the EMR I recommended. Okay, so let's see. We've got another question. Surgeon employed by hospital, you want to do a solo practice. Okay, great. Best legal advice. There's some, how can I say this and not say this? There's some well-known coaches in the field who give some conflicting advice, and so do their attorneys. So I'm not a fan. I've talked to them. There's one guy, I haven't talked to him personally. He's called like functional medicine attorney, and I saw him in the IFM group. He looked like someone worth talking to, but otherwise there's not a ton of, I'm sure more will come, but there's not a ton of attorneys that specialize in functional medicine per se. Let me see if I could pull up his name. Now, I haven't used him myself, just so you know, but I liked his website, and I've already consulted with attorneys, but I'll do like a review, like yearly. And I thought he might be a good one to talk to next time. So let's see if I can pull up his name for you. His name is Scott Rattigan. Again, I haven't used him personally, just looked like someone that would be good to talk to. And this is his email and his website. The ones I did talk to, wasn't a huge fan. So that's why I'm not recommending them. They charged a lot of money, and then some of them said different conflicting things. But let's get back to some of the specifics. So, all my MD coaching clients, it's first of all, kudos for you for doing it. MDs and DOs, it's always more work to do a functional medicine practice because you're sort of supporting both at the same time, in practice and legally. And that's why it often costs more. Although if you do decide to bill insurance, then sometimes that's a huge advantage for the patient and it can cost less for them. But otherwise, the practice itself can often cost more than other people setting up a practice. So you have to make sure you are still, keeping your malpractice insurance as a physician. I have to do this as a DC too, and you're hitting all of those points. And then for this functional medicine layer of it, I actually have a extra insurance. It costs a lot less than my regular one. I'll write what it is here. But it sort of plugs some of the holes. So alternative balance is it. Alternative balance, they'll do yoga instructors and they do speaking and teaching and acupuncture and coaching. And so it just fills in some of the little gaps and holes. So sometimes having more than one insurance is helpful. And then as far as setting up the solo practice, decide your aesthetic and your style. So this comes into branding. Some people like it looks like a medical office, or they like the high-end look. It looks slick. They're going to be maybe more boutique, or maybe they want a membership style practice. It's all fine options. Other people want more homey. It's just a little bit more of a cozy. Maybe it looks like a living room, the waiting room. And other people just do straight virtual. So you have a lot of options there. So sort of decide your aesthetic and your budget setting up. I still recommend like the consult and the intake and the report of findings and follow-up visits. I just think that's a clean format that works well for a variety of licenses. So you don't have to do it that way, but I like it. Some people, when they get really busy, they also do group visits. We haven't talked about that, but that's an option. And then across state lines. So, here's the rub with it. What we do is we see patients in California. We will consult with clients outside of California, but they are not our patients. We do not have a doctor-patient relationship outside of California. We insist that they have a primary care physician. They sign different paperwork. They have different agreements. And some people, like I know one MD has a license in 20 states. Well, you can do that, but that's challenging because then you have to maintain it. You have to pay those fees for each state, and you have to do the continuing education, right? That's a lot of work. So, talk to the attorneys, what they usually set up. Some people are so rigid with it that they actually set up two practices. The state that they're in is their main clinic, especially if they're incorporated, and then they have a separate corporation, maybe even a separate website, and that's where they do all their consulting out of state. I've known some people who moved to Texas because their telehealth rules were less stringent. So, consulting and coaching across state lines and throughout the world and giving advice like, oh, you might want to use this supplement, do this meal plan. That's pretty easy. Where it gets in the gray area is ordering labs. And so you have to decide if you're going to order labs for someone out of state or not. Are you comfortable with that? Is that a risk you feel like you want to assume or not? Or you can say, I'm not going to order any labs out of state. I'll only order labs in state, but I have a list of how clients out of state can go to Dutch and get their own lab, or, just about everyone can get blood work on their own, right? These types of things. They can get some stool tests. They aren't as good as the ones we use, but it might be better than nothing. Or you collaborate with someone in that state. And you just have an agreement that someone in the state is going to order labs for you, and then you can consult. So it depends on what your risk tolerance is and how you want to set it up and get comfortable in that way. Some people only practice in their state, and that's absolutely fine. It depends. Like if you have 100% in-person clinic, that makes sense. If you want to reach more people and be able to pick up the phone or do video, that's an option. You know, you want to be able to go across state lines. And then I know some people with medical licenses who say, you know what, I love functional medicine. I'm doing it all virtually. I want to be able to serve anyone. And so they sort of almost take their license hat off. They might not even use their title. This is getting a little extreme. I don't think you need to do that, but some people do. And they just say, well, I'm a coach. Of course, they're bringing all of their education there. And that's why people do want to consult with them. But that's part of how they do it. Okay, so let's see. Some FM practitioners have an initial labs package for all new patients. Do you find it helpful? You know, I don't do that because so many people come in with an initial, with unique situations. And then they also come in not only with unique health issues, but unique financial situations, right? So if I just have a standard package, I certainly have coaching clients and colleagues who do this. But then you're gonna lose even more people. Like if it's $3,500 to put a foot in your door, which I'm in Walnut Creek, California, I have a lot of colleagues in this area where it is. It's $3,500 to walk in their door. And we just aren't set up that way. We want to make it easier for them. Now, can it add up if they need a lot of tests? You betcha. But I train my staff, and we do ongoing weekly training. So they get a lot of extensive training to really customize it and prioritize it. And just like with supplements, if there's a number of tests we recommend, we will put it in a priority order. I mean, it's always the patient's choice. I don't want them to feel like they can't get care if they don't order a certain number of tests. Now, I love having a ton of tests. I love the whole picture and seeing it all. I might have a patient who's going to pay cash, and it's not cheap, for a 90-minute report of findings, and I have 5 tests I'm going over with them. I love doing that. I love all the crazy complex cases. But I don't want someone else to miss out when we may be able to make a big difference in their life, and they've just worked with one of our coaches and it was a simple digestive issue and some sleep, right? And not only are they happy, but they may now refer 10 other people to you. Now, that being said, that's my personal preference. Some people like the package and they like having protocols because it makes their life easier. And so if that's what you want to do, that's fine. I'll tell you my bias, but there's nothing wrong with that. If it makes it easier and that's how you want to set up your practice, you absolutely can do that. Let's see. Are you able to make the distinction under the same business? I think so. The couple attorneys I talked to, said yes, and that's what we do. It just, again, sort of depends on your risk tolerance or not. All right, let's see. There's a question about chiropractic care with functional medicine as far as scheduling. Is there a need to separate the two? That's a good question, and it's good for all. It's good for all body workers. If you're going to do acupuncture or a chiropractic adjustment or osteopathic manipulation therapy. Who am I not thinking of here? Or massage therapy or whatever your bodywork technique is. I think that should be a separate visit, especially if you're giving it. If you have someone else in your office, no problem. They can come in, do their functional medicine visit with you, and then they walk to the next door and they get their adjustment or whatever it is. But if you're providing all of it, then I do recommend that it's separate. It can be one of your tools. And when you give them like a care plan, it might be, okay, here's the meal plan and the supplement protocol I recommend based on your history and exam and these lab results. And then we'll do a follow-up visit in 4 weeks. Next week, I want you to come in 2 times for an adjustment. And week 3, you're going to meet with our nutrition coach. So you can make that plan however you want, but I would make those separate. I think also just for your sanity, as far as which hat you're wearing, even though it's all under that functional medicine umbrella as far as care, and these are tools. It's just a different mode when you're like hands-on taking care of bodies versus your, hearing all these symptoms and, reading through lab findings and things like that. So I've found that better to be a mode. I'm thinking of one practitioner I was just coaching where she's an acupuncturist and doing a lot of acupuncture visits, and then specializing in fertility and doing functional medicine. And the practice was getting so busy. She was very happy with the work we had done. There's a lot of growth there, but the practice was getting so busy that it was like, oh, my days or times where I was seeing acupuncturists is now spilling over into functional medicine. And I was like, well, this is a great problem to have, and no spillover, because don't be afraid to create some scarcity, right? If people have to book in advance with you, that's okay too. They have to plan ahead. Guess what? You're going to have a lot less cancellations. So everything's about supply and demand, right? And in the beginning, you feel like you have to say yes to everything. But especially as you grow and you sort of find your groove, you don't need to say yes to everything. And it might be, well, my next acupuncture space is in 5 weeks, but I have a nutrition visit available next week. Which one do you want to do? Leave it up to them. I'll wait for the acupuncture. Okay, great. Oh, let me do the nutrition visit, and I'm going to schedule acupuncture for later on down the road. So yeah, don't feel like you have to say yes to everything. Let's see. Do I do in-office training or mentorship? Yes, actually, it's fun. I love that. It makes the day so much more fun. So sometimes I'll have people who will shadow. I just get permission from the patients ahead of time. Now that I do my visits remotely, we do GoToMeeting, because you can get a HIPAA compliant GoToMeeting, and then you get to watch how I'm charting, be part, listen in to the conversation and the patient and what's happening, and sort of see the whole thing. So yeah, that's always fun to do. Otherwise, the vast majority of my coaching work is one-on-one. It's all just like my healthcare. It's all customized with people, and it just depends on what they need. Some people, it's like the mindset stuff. Am I qualified to do this? How do I communicate with this person? What do I charge for it? Other people, it's the technical stuff. How do I set up the website? How do I set up the the AMR? How do I give them the handout? I spent 5 hours preparing for a report of findings. How do I make that less, or I'm burnt out? Like, how do I have a decent life? And then there's the clinical ones. What do I do with this information, and how do I synthesize it? If you're just getting started yourself, there's obviously a lot to figure out and create forms and do all of those things. If you're creating a clinic that's going to have multiple practitioners, a lot of the work is going to be creating systems, right? So it's not just systems for the practitioner, I mean, the patients to go through, but then you need systems for other practitioners. So over the years, I had to create that for people in our clinic, you know, things I may have taken for granted or just with my education I knew, and then how could I make it as easy as possible for our practitioners so they didn't have to like rethink stuff. In fact, I can show you one example that might be helpful. I mean, we have tons of different systems, but this is lab guidelines for practitioners. So let me share my screen real quick. Right, there's the screen. That was the handout from before, Functional Medicine Academy, that I had mentioned. Okay, so this is a handout. Hopefully you can see it. Tell me if you need me to zoom in more. I can zoom in a bit more. So this is, you know, obviously specific to our practice, but it tells my practitioners what they need to do when labs come in. And then every lab, and I use this myself, even though I made it, just so I don't have to like be rethinking in the moment, right? What handouts, and these are all ready in Jane, and these are the exact names, so you can find it. It's alphabetical. But what are the handouts that they're going to attach? So if this person had a GI map, and here's an optional one, how to retrain a sluggish bowel if they're dealing with constipation. Here's a guide to the clinical reference guide. I've provided 2 videos on how to know how to read it. So they've already gone through the training, but I just remind them, if you have more questions, there it is. I tell them some of the things to be looking for, some high alerts. We've caught cancer a number of times, and so things I want them to watch for. What typical supplements to use, just so they already know, and what supplements to hold before the test. This is oats, organic acid test, same format. These are the handouts. Here's what to look for, right? Some of the key things that come up. What type of supplements get used, you know, by name quite often, which ones to hold. This is my favorite leaky gut test. I can show you what that looks like if anyone's interested. I think it's quite a good test. That's by Precision Point Labs. Same thing, what to look for. My favorite food test. I can show you that also if you guys are interested in clinical stuff. So here's the SIBO one, all those handouts. We do a ton of SIBO work. Here's the Dutch. I often give patients, and again, what supplements we might typically use, what to hold before the test. Urinalysis, blood labs, some typical support based on blood findings, methylation panel with genomics. So anyway, that's one type of handout. I can show you, let's see, if you want to see another one. I don't know if it's interesting to see these things or not. Here's another one. I saw the zoom in. Tell me, let me see, the chat went away, so I missed it. Let me put the chat so I can see. I share that handout just with coaching clients and FMA, just FYI, because a ton of work went into it. But here's an example, and you can always make your own too, but those are the groups that I just give them mine. We use certain pillars of healthcare. I can show you what that looks like. And then we have functional diagnoses. And this is a formula. I give this to my clients too. These are like functional diagnoses, right? To separate from typical medical diagnoses. So this is created for all of our practitioners, and it's part of how they can also communicate with one another. And it relates to, let me just see if I can show you here. it might be easier just to find it on the website. That might be the fastest. Let me show you this real quick, and then I'll come back to it. This is that tab I was telling you about that describes functional medicine. It's in the middle like this, by the way, because it's optimized for mobile. That's how most people are looking at it. That's the pillars I was talking about. So I made this, it's specific, you know, to our practice, but sort of the pillars that patients move through and what is it we address at each of those levels. So anyway, so that's when you see pillars, that's what it has to do. So each of these diagnoses are relate to a pillar. This is the health coaching grid. These are certain supplements that are easy, you know, they know when to use it. I've approved that they can use it right from an intake. Again, this is a formula, and they just can grab this and paste it right into the chart and tells them what to do. This is our meal plan. Some of you have done IFM will recognize some of these names, and some of you that use Well World will recognize some of these names, but basically on the left, like adrenal, anti-candida, autoimmune. And then here's Jane. Do we have a specific Jane template? Yes, that's the exact name so they can find it. Is there a Well World option? In many cases, yes. And what is it? So Well World is a great health coaching app for patients or clients that are technologically minded and they want something on their phone and they want to track it. It's just a great system. And this tells you the exact name. Is there an IFM sheet? We use a lot of the IFM handouts, which is one of the advantages of being an IFM member. So yes, if there's a handout that's listed. And then there's a description of the diet, what the typical length is, certain features, when are you likely to use it. But, you know, we got a lot of meal plans here, right? Adrenal, anti-candida, autoimmune, cardio, elemental, elimination, feed your soul. That's one we created. GERD, histamine, immune, fasting, keto, Mediterranean, Mito, Prolon, SIBO, vegan, vegetarian. There's WALS protocol. We created a short cheat sheet for people. So anyway, yeah, you know, you get to create all that kind of stuff in practice, or I just give it to people. Those of you who have access to IFM handouts, they have a lot of wonderful handouts. They might not have everything you need, but they certainly have a ton. And the ones that you like, you can download those and put that in your software, your EMR, whichever one you use, and share those with patients. So that can be a nice advantage. But you know, the need to educate patients is always, you know, an ongoing thing. Oh, I know what got me started on saying that is when, you know, there's always going to be some patients who want a little bit of information, and then there's some who want it all, right? And so with a lot of the labs, what I will do is I will also give the patient the clinical reference guide. Right? And I do this for a number of reasons. One is the people who want a lot of information, boom, they've got it. The ones who don't want a lot of information, but they want to be reminded, like, oh yeah, Dr. Zachary is telling me this and she knows what the heck she's talking about because she knows this inside and out. They take a look at that 40-page document and go, forget it. I'm just going to ask Dr. Z what it is. And also then there's some people, they might not read it all, but I'm describing and telling them something. And then instead of having to remember it, they can use it as a reference guide and just go look up that piece. So, you know, multiple reasons to share it. But I will give the Dutch treatment booklet. Is everyone familiar with that? Do you want me to show that one to you? Okay, I see a few nods, a lot of faces I don't see. So some people are going to be answering all the questions for you. Or pipe up in the chat. Thank you. Thank you. I see someone did. Okay, let me share my screen again. This is a Dutch. Let me just pull out the chat, so if you say something, I don't miss it. This is a Dutch test. We could always talk about it. It's a fun test. I like it a lot. I liked it better over the years. I didn't like it as much in the past, but I feel like it's gotten better. Anyway, this is the treatment booklet, and you don't need me to give this to you. I have given it to many people, but you can get this yourself right online. And I've posted, for those of you in the IFM groups, it's sort of a hidden link, but I've taught a training on how to read the Dutch. So if you want it, I guess I could give it to you again real quick here. Let's see. Because if you're not in IFM, you probably haven't seen that. Because a lot of the coaching is paid for. So whenever I'm doing something free, that's great to just jump in and grab it, right? Where is it? Okay, this is the link for the Dutch training. Again, I'm not affiliated with this company at all. It's just a test I use. So that's the link for the Dutch webinar training that I did. And this, let me grab this guy. This is the link for the booklet I'm showing you right now. I'm going to scroll through it in a second. And then this is, this might be the shortcut. We didn't talk about it, but I've got some great stuff in there about how to communicate with patients. It looks like they're getting squished together. That's not fun. There's also a case review that I did. I'll have to find that one. Okay, hang on. We got some people in the waiting room. Let me let them in. Okay. So this is the treatment guide booklet, and let me just zoom in. Hopefully it's really big. This is a great little booklet. You have to know how to read it. And they talk about cortisol first, which I always think is funny because cortisol is listed last in their test. And I give this to patients too. Are they going to read it all? Some. Most won't. Most will just go based on what I'm telling them. And here you've got your sex hormones, symptoms of low and high, typical root causes. And then these are lovely little charts, like a woman who's still cycling, depending on what her range is. This can be very helpful information. You know, if she's sufficient in progesterone, but she's, you know, low in estrogen, what you might want to consider, or she's high in estrogen and low in progesterone. And then here's menopausal range, and then testosterone shows. So that can be great. But yeah, I just give them that booklet too. Are you guys familiar with the one with GI map? Is that one sort of just a little bit? Okay, so with GI map, this is the GI map one. So I'll give this to patients too. And this is a great guide. I like their tests so much better than the others, and I've used them all. Besides the price and all the markers, I just think it's better organized. And so it goes through all the pathogens, and you can see it's a 40-page PDF. So you could just hit Control Find and jump to something. This is a lovely little chart. If you don't have this, I actually took this and put it into a handout for patients. But this is the 5 R's, and without saying a brand name, gives you some of the key herbs and supplement ingredients you would want to use at different phases of the 5R. That's on page 8. Let's see, after pathogens, well, we got parasites and whatnot, viral, H. pylori. I like that they will test for virulence factors. That can be very helpful. the normal commensal bacteria, good notes, simple, clean, easy to read. Some of the opportunistic bacteria, and then including the autoimmune, right? So some of this bacteria, when it's overgrown, will initiate and sustain autoimmune disease. Fungi and yeast, which doesn't always get picked up on a stool test, but when it's there, it's pretty safe to assume it's everywhere. Parasites that can be non-pathological, but especially if you see someone with a lot of dysbiosis and they have multiple parasites, it's probably because of the dysbiosis. It might be causing problems for them. Some worms. The intestinal.
Dr. Zachary, what company is this through again?
Diagnostic Solutions. And there's definitely overlap.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. There's definitely an overlap with Genova's test and doctors' data. And Genova just redid their format about maybe 6 months ago, maybe a little bit more or less. And so it's easier to read. But one nice thing about Genova is if you wanted a multiple day, you could. And it's just their base test. It looks like it costs less, but there's so many markers mixing from it. They let you then pick and choose what markers you want to add, but then the price gets up quite high. So really, this is just my favorite for what's included. And I'm enough of a geek that I've actually, this is definitely TMI, my apologies, but I've actually tested all of these tests on the same stool, doctor's data against Genova, against GI map, and done some before and after. So I really do like GI map better. Elastase, a lot of people, even the lab, they won't give you a marker, you know, a high flag unless it's under 200. That's pancreatic insufficiency, but 200 to 500 is decreased. And so a lot of people forget that. Above 500 is normal. And I can just tell you from doing hundreds, if not thousands of these at this point, that 1500 to 2500 is typical. So sometimes there's information you need to know that's not in here. Beta glucuronidase is a great marker, especially someone who's having hormonal issues, and to tie that back into a Dutch test, right? Because that will interfere with the metabolism and clearance of estrogen. So anyway, I like that one a lot. So you can just, I think you can just search online. Here, let me just give you this link right here. There's the link for GI map. So yeah, I would give them that. One of my favorite allergy tests. I know a lot of people would do like food sensitivity testing. Let me see if I can pull up this guide here. I was not a big fan of doing food sensitivity testing because it was mostly just IgG, and people would come in with gut problems and they had leaky gut or they had SIBO. And so they'd get this food testing done and so many things would come up. And, you know, I just sort of felt like it was a waste of money to get it early on. I wanted to like do some work and then see sort of what was left. Well, my favorite test, again, not affiliated with the company, just sharing what I like Precision Point Labs. I know there's another lab company, I forgot their name, but they copied their tests almost exactly. So I think you're going to see more and more of these tests. But this one here, I'll open up an allergy test. And then where's the guide? Oh, there's the guide right there. I'll show you that guide. And please interrupt with a question, because especially if I'm saying something that's not that interesting to you, let's get back to what interests you. But okay, so this one right here, this is my favorite allergy test, Precision Allergy 88. My only complaint is they only test 88 foods. So that's sort of a bummer. I wish they did more. But I like this because most labs will charge you extra, or you have to get, it's not even getting charged extra. You have to do different labs to get these markers. But I like that we're getting true allergies, IgE, we're getting, you know, the blocking potential, IgG4, this immune tolerance, and then the food sensitivities, IgG, and complement, C3D. I like this test. The lab makes it easy. They give you an example of a less restrictive elimination diet the patient could do, a more restrictive, and then this was an older version, so it doesn't show it, but they now have a page 5 where they actually take all 88 of those markers and list it. They use a formula and list as far as like immune reactivity. So if someone said, well, I can do better than the least restrictive diet, I don't want to do the more restrictive diet, that's a long list, then they can look at page 5 and customize it and say, all right, I'm going to cut out the top 10. This is the guide. This is a great guide. I love this. So I give this to patients all the time. This is just the lab put together. This lab has great notes. The lab just put together a really good booklet with a lot of wonderful information. I think it's good for practitioners to read it, but I share it with patients all the time. So great stuff there. This is my favorite leaky gut test, which is by that same lab. There's certainly cheaper tests, but I like this one because it does have zonulin, but it has DAO, right? The enzyme that breaks down histamine. It has histamine. You can see if someone ends up being histamine intolerant, and then it tests for lipopolysaccharides, and they have really good lab notes. So it's right included in there, and your patient or client's going to have that. Susan, you look tiny now. All right.
I'm not Susan. I am Susan's daughter.
Well, hi, it's nice to meet you. Hi, Susan's daughter. Are you having a good day? Did you have to do school today?
I don't do school, but I do homeschool.
Oh, okay. Well, me too. I'm doing school from home also. All right. Any other questions?
Do school, I can tell because I am very smart, and I know your kidding voice.
Oh, yeah, you're right. It was my kidding voice. Sort of though, sort of. I do sort of do school at home though. Okay, other questions? Clinical, marketing, coaching. How do you copy the resources in the chat? Are you able to click the guide when
I don't know how to click the guide because I'm never here.
Okay, honey.
My mom's working.
So Marjorie, can you copy it when I give a link, or you're not able to copy it? So if you can copy it right there, that would be the best. If it's not working for you, you can always email me, but you can also search online. So Precision Point Labs, you can go AIBA. Let me just type that out. AIBA, that stands for Advanced Intestinal Barrier Assessment. So you can, whenever you're searching for something, that's Precision Point Labs. So a lot of times you can say Precision Point Labs, Allergy 88, or the ABA test, and you want a sample test, or you want the clinical reference guide. You can pull it right up online without being logged in. Some labs like Cyrex, you need to have an account and you need to be logged into your account, and then you can get their clinical guides. But you can download them and then you don't have to log in anymore. You just have to download it once and then you'll have it from that point on. The GI map one, same thing. If you just type this into Google, you should, GI map interpretive guide, you should be able to pull it right up without being logged in. And then if you really have a hard time finding something, just message me and I'll let you know. If you decide, I mean, I love labs. If you decide you love labs and you use like Rupa, they're very helpful. Every lab has, I'm going to mute you, love. Every lab has, customer service and things like that. Sometimes most labs will let you set up an appointment to go over a test. I've done that. I don't find them that helpful, actually. I don't know why. I don't feel like they teach it that well. Maybe it was just me, and I'm not even picking on one lab because I've done it with many lab companies, but I think they hire some practitioners and it's supposed to be 30 minutes. And then I don't know, it's like they just say a few points. They don't really teach you how to read the test. ABA is not, I don't think it's UK based. I think it's in the US, pretty sure. It's Precision Point Labs. And there's, other, like Cyrix, for example, I think it's Array 2, does some, I can't remember if it's saliva or blood. I feel like it's saliva, but they do some leaky gut markers. I just like this test the best, especially because I get histamine intolerant patients, and like one doctor I had as a patient, her whole torso was red and really having reactions eating food. This was a helpful test. So I don't order it for everyone all the time because that's probably the hardest part of the job with a cash practice is what test are you going to recommend? Because, patients have to pay for it. So how do you prioritize it? That probably is the toughest part. Do I have a favorite lab for thyroid? Blood is best for the thyroid. So a lot of these specialty labs, like, Dutch is so much better, in my opinion, than getting hormones via blood, even better than saliva. But especially with blood, the hormones have to be really, really off before you're going to see something show on blood. Blood is better for serious medical condition, or maybe to confirm menopause or something like that. But Dutch is incredibly valuable, and you can really see all these different phases of it. But for thyroid, a blood test is ideal. You just want a full thyroid panel, or at least TSH. I like thyroxine T4 total. I feel like that's the best representative of what's really happening at the thyroid gland. Free T3 and T4, getting TPO.
I mute myself.
You're a smart cookie. I'm going to keep you muted for now, but I'll talk to you at the end. Okay. Hang in there, love. TPO and thyroglobulin antibodies. So I think those are sort of a minimum. You don't always need, reverse T3 and T3 uptake and whatnot. But those other ones, I like to see them all at one time. And we'll do LabCorp, and we'll do Boston Heart. So if you don't know Boston Heart's my favorite for advanced heart tests.
I'm playing a game with mommy, so I'll mute myself and on video mute myself.
Okay, honey. Thank you.
On video, then you.
Can you imagine, like, if you had to this last year teach kindergartners over Zoom? So Boston Heart, one nice thing about Boston Heart is you can make your own panels. So we did that. Like, what I like to see for an advanced heart panel or an inflammation, we just told our rep what we wanted, gave it a name, and it's just easy to check it off. We have a sugar panel that we like, because I don't want to just see a fasting glucose and a hemoglobin A1C. I also want to see insulin, C-peptide, adiponectin, ideally leptin. So that's our sugar panel. So you can just tell Boston Heart, and they'll make those panels for you. So we made a thyroid panel with them too. That was a long way of saying that. And then whatever's cheapest and easiest for the patient, that's what we do as far as choosing between LabCorp and Boston Heart. All right, other questions? I know someone had like a marketing one. I don't know if I really did that one yet. And let me make sure I got the email questions because some people are watching this later. Let me just make sure I didn't miss it. But yeah, if you have another question, you can just ask it or you can type it. Oh, someone had asked a question about functional medicine for low income families. That's a hard one. You know, the MDs and the DOs, and I think the NDs, you might have an advantage there because if you can bill insurance, that might be a better chance to be able to serve some low income families. Those of us who have cash practices, it's hard because there definitely is a certain cost associated with functional medicine. We try to keep the cost as affordable as possible, but there's obviously some people who can't afford it. So if you're in that situation, either you serve the population you can, or we've been trying to get a grant. So then if we get a grant, we can serve some people who can't afford functional medicine. And that way it pays for their care and still pays for the practitioners that are seeing them. So I don't know, knock on wood, we'll see if it comes through or not, but that would be great. Otherwise, yeah, that's hard to do. So some type of grant or a sponsor, or if you're able to bill insurance. Otherwise, I'd say maybe the only other creative way to do that is via group, like a group visit. So there are codes, even those who bill insurance, there are group codes you can do. What we do is we do teach a lot of free classes. And this can be good even for practitioners. They're designed for patients, but I have tons of practitioners who watch these classes. Some are because they're new and it's just easier for them to start their functional medicine education with a class that's at a patient level. They're going to assimilate it faster and then move on, but that's an easier way for them to start. So if you ever want to watch those are on the Body Love Cafe website on the video tab. And I'm about to teach a SIBO one. So usually when I teach a class, I cover like 5 to 10 topics in 90 minutes to 2 hours. But this one is on April 2nd. So I think that's in 2 weeks on a Friday. And the whole 2 hours is SIBO. It's everything you need to know about SIBO. There's a practitioner version that's still even more technical, but 2 hours I'm covering a lot. So anyway, for people who really can't afford anything at all, we have those classes. They don't even have to opt in. They're on the website. We have nutrition, we have detox, we have thyroid, we have adrenal, we have heart health. So that's a lot. There's a lot there.
You mind if I...
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to ask a quick question. I think I heard you touch on some parts of this towards the end, but how do you tackle seeing patients outside of your state?
I will do coaching and consulting with them. So they have different paperwork and they sign different agreements. They have to have a primary care physician, so they understand it's different. It's not like a true doctor-patient relationship. But other than that, we're able to do much of the same stuff. Not everything's the same. And then if we can order tests for them, we can. If not, they get their own tests, but we can educate them about the tests. We can make supplement recommendations. We can, you know, recommend meal plans and lifestyle changes and talk about sleep and talk about poop and still be that pivot point. Because obviously if someone's out of state and I think they need to see an acupuncturist, I'm not going to refer them to ours, but I'll say, you know, I highly recommend you find a local acupuncturist. Here's what you might want to ask them. Or with their primary care physician, can you go back to your main doc and let them know, you know, this came up, can they order this test for you? Or you know, and with everything, you know, CYA, anything we do or recommend, they sign it, we say it, it's in all our paperwork over and over again. You know, let your primary care physician know when you make diet changes, when you make supplement changes, when you make exercise changes. So that's how we do that.
Do patients know that there's a difference if they're coming to you from out of state, or do you find that it changes at all? Does it change your patient intake, I guess, when they come from out of state?
You know, it's super obvious on our website if you look, because Body Love Cafe, if you click on services, you'll actually see there's a section for patients in California and then out of California. And then if someone clicks to schedule, it's the same thing, even through Jane, they schedule differently. So it's very obvious in that way. And very rarely does someone schedule in the wrong way. And if they do, we fix it, you know, we catch it on the back end. But otherwise it's pretty clear. So yeah, none of it's hidden. It's all right up front.
Thank you for answering that. And just last follow-up question in the same realm. Is that how you handle your patients from out of country as well? So those from UK, Canada, Australia, things like that?
Yes, absolutely. And just so you know, I even have practitioners who aren't in our state. I have practitioners in other parts of the US that are part of our team. So, so yeah, we have practitioners in other locations too, but that's how we do it. And with some of the patients, like, you know, I'm thinking of one patient I have in Australia that, and she's actually, I get a lot of healthcare people, I think, because I teach. So she's actually a trained herbalist and runs stores, but she wants what I'm recommending and wants me to send it to her. I will actually ship to her, even though she has to pay so much more for shipping. That's what she wants. Whereas most people in another country, if we have an account there, like I was mentioning Designs for Health earlier, we have multiple accounts around the world, they can order that way, or I just tell them what to get, like get this locally or collaborate with someone locally so you can get good quality. But here's, you know, here's the ingredient I recommend. Here's the plan I'd recommend. So yeah, depending on how remote they are and what they have access to, depends on how much we can, you know, really help versus just giving them some consulting. Okay, let's see. Someone asked, do the labs charge patients directly, or do you pay for the lab and bill the patient? We've done both. So we do use Rupa Health, and they offer both options. And so if you don't want to have that revolving door of cost go through your office and you want them to pay Rupa Health directly, you can. You know, just from a business standpoint, I recommend you get a cashback credit card of 2 or 3%. And, you know, you'll probably make like 12 grand a year just in cashback. And then you can use that to cover some expenses. That's essentially free money. So yeah, why not have the charges there? But the real reason we have them pay through the office is it's easier for us to track who gets what. So so that's why we did that. So they it's just easier for my staff to track who has what labs, because there's just a lot moving through the office and a lot happening. So the patient pays us for the lab. We line item out. You know, some states it's illegal to increase a lab cost. So if you're going to have any increased cost, you have to line item it as a service fee, or if it's a credit card charge or whatever it is. For whatever reason, you're not charging the exact price. I know people in other states, they're like they double or triple the cost. We don't do that at all. It's a very minor bump. It's not like some big profitable thing. It just helps cover the Rupa fee and the credit card fee and a little bit of the staff time. So we line item that as a service fee. but then it's easier to track. And then the lab just has our office credit card on file and they charge them. So you've got a couple options there. And we don't really bill insurance. We will give super bills. Every now and then we have someone who really wants to use their insurance for a lab, so we may help with that. But most labs, GI Map doesn't do this, by the way. I do have to say, if you use GI Map, that is one advantage. But most labs, if they're going to bill the patient's insurance, they're charging a lot more, right? Same thing, they're covering their staff's time for jumping through all those insurance hoops. And then the problem is if insurance denies it, the patient gets stuck with that bigger bill. So I don't like that. And that's part of why we don't do that. GI Map, though, they will bill insurance. And if insurance does not cover it, which by the way, most of the time it does, but if insurance does not cover it, the lab does not charge a premium. It's the same price as if you were doing cash. So that's one nice advantage. But the vast majority of labs out there charge more for going through insurance. Okay, let me make sure I got all these. If there's any other questions, jump in. Someone asked how to structure the day and week to not burn out. Everyone's different. I'm like that highly sensitive person who needs a lot of downtime. Plus I do a lot of other things and projects. So I only see patients 2 half days a week. It's back to back, it's intense, but that's it. That's all I will see patients. And then my other practitioners, they pick whatever their hours are that they want and see people. So I don't know, I would say 3 patient days maximum is what I would recommend. You could do more if you want, but I think you need to have, especially those of you that are like the head, you know, you're running the clinic, you need to have a day for marketing and for bookkeeping stuff and, you know, all the business, you need to have time off, you know, so I don't think you should be seeing patients all the time. Those of you who are coming from a hospital setting, that can be really weird to switch because you're used to like, you know, 4 or 5 days a week and it's this intense setting. But yeah, this is a completely different mindset and you want to, you know, you want to be able to go the distance and not burn out. My liability insurance, I'm a DC, so my malpractice is through typical DC. I use NCMIC, and then I also do alternative balance. So, and then we're corporations, we have corporate insurance too. So we have more than we need, but that way we just have some overlap in case there's any gaps. And it just depends on what your license is. So if you have some type of medical or physician's license, you're always going to have that malpractice for that license. And then if, you know, if there's some gaps, alternative balance or something like that to fill it in. If you don't have that medical license, then something like alternative balance might be all you need. So you can look it up and see all the different things that they cover.
I guess piggybacking of that, how did you decide which insurance company to go with for your malpractice insurance?
For the one specific to my license, I just picked the one that was like has been around the longest, is the most well-known, and probably any of them would have been fine, but I just sort of picked the leader in that field. And as far as alternative balance, I'm trying to think of how I first heard about it. I think I heard about it from someone else, and then we researched it because, you know, we have some people, like we have a registered dietitian and we have another DC, and then we've got an MD coming on board, and we've had an acupuncturist before, we've got a massage therapist, we have all these different licenses. So depending on what they're doing, I needed something that would cover a variety of people. So alternative balance was good for that. And that's what our health coaches use. So it's not that expensive either. I think it's like $250 a year, super cheap. If you're going to cover it, like our health coaches are employees. So they're W-2 employees. Some people bring health coaches on and they're getting someone from the outside with a health coaching certificate, and maybe they make a certain percentage of visits or things like that. Ours, they had some nutrition certificates, but they went through our FMA, our Functional Medicine Academy, and they had tons of in-office training, but we made them employees because we were asking them to do very specific things with strict guidelines. So I do have contractors for other roles, but in this capacity, I wanted health coaches where we had a lot of control over what they were doing. And so if you have employees in that way, you might want alternative balance. Like I think it's $75 a year or $95 a year to pay for each employee. Whereas if it's a contractor, like our massage therapist, he pays for his own, it's $250 a year or something. Those, you know, if you're a surgeon on here and you're like, what, these are the amounts for malpractice. These other malpractice insurance are very low cost because it's just very uncommon to get sued. So you know how insurance companies are, they look at how much people get sued and that's how they set their pricing. Like the most expensive is an anesthesiologist, right? And then like OBGYN, things like that. So by the time you're getting insurance for a health coach in your office, it's going to cost next to nothing because it's extremely rare someone's going to sue a health coach. It's just not a life or death situation, you know, that's gonna happen there. Okay, jump in if there's any other questions. The other thing, and we're at the end, so we'll stop. The one last thing I was going to say as far as structuring the day and week to not burn out, besides when do you see patients, when do you structure office time and marketing? We didn't really get into marketing, but what else was I going to say about that for structuring? Oh, the piece I said about, oh, no problem, Brenda, thank you. The piece I said about when you're done seeing a patient, being done charting, I think that's a huge piece to structuring your day and week to not burn out, is that when you're done to try to walk away, because you know how it is, you can't ever completely get everything out of your mind and you think about certain people and, you know, it's hard to turn it off, to turn off the caring and the connection. So if you're done with your day seeing patients and then you have hours more of charting, it's draining. So I like to try to help people set it up that they have a break and then they're done. Let's see, someone asked, do you use patient electronic record company recommended by IFM? That's Jane that I use. Jane software I like, and I think it's great. How do you get the recording? I'll have to like email it, I think. So if I have your email, I'll just send it to everyone. If I don't have your email, let me give you mine. I'll give you two. You could do info@thefmacademy.com, or you can do Dr. Zachary at bodylovecafe.com. Either one's fine, but if you want an email and I don't have your email, just shoot it over to me. Give me your first and last name, and then it'll probably be early next week. When you're starting out, you require research time. Do you schedule this at the end of the days or on your days off? Not on days off. You're going to need real days off. But research time needs to be on work days that you don't see patients. That would be the ideal. Like, I could just tell you my current schedule right now is on Mondays, and I'm in my pajamas, let's be honest. On Mondays, we do our staff meeting via Zoom with all of our practitioners and all of our team. I do practitioner. Oh, don't give me your email in here. I'll miss it. Send it to me. Otherwise I'll miss it. Sorry. I do practitioner training. So like my practitioners that have either they need training, we just do tons of ongoing training, or they have a question, you know, they have a report of findings coming up. I'll go through it with them. We do it for our health coaches. All that happens on Monday. And then I prep all my files for Tuesday. So they're all done. Everything's done. And then I see patients on Tuesday, and I don't do anything else on Tuesday. I just see the patients, except I will prep Wednesday. And then on Wednesday, I see the Wednesday patients. I don't do anything else. Thursday, I take completely off. I tell people to forget my phone number. If they don't know me, don't call me. And that's the one day I get off with my husband. And then Fridays, I do coaching or teach a class, things like that. And then I have the weekends off. Sometimes I'll teach a class on a Saturday, but otherwise I mostly have the weekends off. So that's sort of how we structure it. And as far as marketing a new practice, I mean, I've talked about that for 8 hours straight. So that's a big topic. But, and if you want to know more about it, honestly, doing that FMA class number 6, the notes on that, I think are phenomenal. I'm biased, of course, because I made it. So let's be honest about that. But it really goes through the details as far as like who you are, what's your message, how do you communicate, who do you want to attract? A lot of people talk about ideal clients. We could talk about ideal clients. I use that personality profiling system I created instead. So you know who you are and who you want to attract. That works very well. Even branding colors, even the name of your practice. And are you going to name your clinic something else? Or are you going to name it after yourself? Those are all important decisions. And then how do you reach people? If you're going to do some social media, that can be great, but you want it to be effective and you don't want to have to be living on it. Sometimes it can make sense to use a social media service, but if you're going to do that, you have to be able to direct the message so it matches what you want to put out there. Classes or speaking or teaching is a great way to reach people. First of all, if you teach a lay patient class, it always helps to solidify your learning, and it helps to, you know, it helps to teach you how to communicate with your patients in a way that they can understand. So I'm a big fan of that. And again, you can go to Body Love Cafe, click on videos, and you can see a lot. I don't even have all of them up there, but there's a lot up there that you can see. And so those are all good things. Some people do postcards. Like I did that with one client. I was helping her. I redesigned her postcard, and she went through postcard mania and got a lot of results. So it depends on what you're looking for. I always like to make sure that if we're going to spend any money on marketing, that the goal is very clear and we have a measurable outcome to make sure we don't waste money, because it's really easy to waste money. Some people do Facebook ads, which can be good, but I would not lightly dabble with that. That's a way to lose a lot of money. A lot of Facebook stuff you can do for free, especially if you know how to do it. Have a Facebook page for your clinic and put good quality information out there. When I had a big clinic physically before I went virtual, I would teach a class, and I had over 80 people attend. I had to stand in the doorway and teach to 2 rooms. I never even had to make an offer. I did not even have to do anything salesy at all. I would just teach the information, just make it a true give. And then people would self-select. You know, they knew like, oh, you know what, this sounds like me and I need more information. And they would, you know, become patients just on their own. There's a heart health class that I teach. In fact, I gave that entire script in the marketing class for FMA. And when I would teach that heart health class, I quite frequently, I never got less than 15 new patients that night. But frequently I got 38 new patients at one time. So that was always a big practice builder. And there's a whole format to doing that. That works really well. So teach valuable information. Understanding the labs that we use, this is an advantage. Like, you can't get these labs everywhere, and you can use labs to build a practice. Some practitioners, you know, they're not comfortable with labs. You can see I like to have systems. So I actually built a software analysis system for labs about 4.5 years ago when I started Body Love Cafe. And then I recently redid it last year. I'm just finalizing it so other practitioners can use it, very low cost. And it includes Dutch, GI map, SIBO, like 130 blood markers, urinalysis, leaky gut. I'm probably forgetting something. Oh, organic acid test. All my faves are in there, right? And a staff member can punch in the results. It says what it means and what supplements and lifestyle changes to recommend. So, but getting comfortable with labs, these can be a practice builder. So whether you do social media or you're doing emails or you host a class or you go on Zoom or you get invited to show up somewhere, or you're just even starting brand new and you're telling family and friends, and then word of mouth is growing, whatever you're doing, maybe focus on, like, talk about one condition or talk about one symptom or talk about one ingredient of a supplement or talk about a lab. Because if you have a cool lab, people want that information. Just like they like talking about themselves, they like learning about themselves. If you want to specialize in fertility or peri and menopause, talking about the Dutch test can be great. And then you could choose to, depending on your license, do you offer that test and they they get it through you? I know when my voice is going around the end. Or do you just tell them about how to order a Dutch online themselves, and then they bring that test result into you and see you? But you got to be able to explain to them, you know, why that's an awesome test and why you want to know that. Because some people just think, well, you know, I got my estrogen done in my blood and it looks fine. Well, there's so much more to that. Where were you in your cycle? Did they even ask? Did they even pay attention? What are we looking at, the balance of estrogen and testosterone and progesterone? Are we looking at phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification? And, you know, how are you metabolizing and clearing your estrogen? Are you a good methylator? What about your stress hormones? What's your melatonin? Some B vitamins. There's an early DNA damage marker on there, organic acid. So I'm just thinking of like some of the things that are on the Dutch. Or maybe you specialize in gut health. Let's say SIBO is your thing. If you're going to do certain gut health practices, you're always going to be busy, because those patients, they need a lot of help and they need a lot of ongoing care. So, you know, you want to become an expert in SIBO, you're never not going to have, thank you guys for the comments. You're never not going to have patients because they need a lot of work. So then what is it you talk about? Well, look at some of the marketing we did. I'll just share, I don't know where the link is actually. I think this is it actually. It's a tiny URL. Oops, I'm sending it just to one person. Let me send it to all of you. And then we'll be done with this. Tiny URL, and it's SIBO Masterclass. If you look at that, let me just make sure what I gave you actually works. Okay, good. If you look at that, like, what's the big thing that shows up? Being bloated, right? If you say SIBO, that doesn't necessarily mean anything to anyone, but people know if they're bloated and they don't feel comfortable. So then you talk to like the first symptom and then explain to them, like, one of the first things we said is, you know, most people get diagnosed with IBS. Well, that's sort of a catch-all diagnosis, like what's behind that? And we know from research, so many people with IBS really have SIBO. So that's like the next thing you sort of see, IBS or SIBO. Here's some common symptoms. Here's when this free class is. And then we talk a little bit about SIBO, but otherwise, mostly we're going to talk about it in that class. So a SIBO breath test might be something that they want. If you're new and you want FMA and you've never done it before, email us and we'll help you out. If you were signed up for FMA from a Duco and they're not doing it anymore, I've got your information and I'll make sure you know when the next class is. I think May or June is going to be the first one. You'll get credit for any classes you've already taken, and then the new classes you'll get free of charge because you'd already paid them. And I don't have to do that because I had nothing to do with the finances. I just think it sucks. So I want to make sure you can get what you need. And then you can finish your certification this year through us. So we'll make sure you can do that remotely. No problem. And any questions, email us. We'll help you out, but I'll make sure you know it. And if you can't make the class live, I love it when you can make the class live. It's always more fun for me, and the Q&A is my favorite part. But if you can't make it live, you can have the recording, and that will count. Okay, you guys, we could probably talk forever, but reach out if you have any questions. Otherwise, I hope it was helpful. I hope you have an awesome weekend, and I hope you either go out there and start your functional medicine practice or just take it up another notch and make it fun and help a lot of people. So thank you. Bye.